Drumtrainer Online, meine Damen und Herren, with the incredible Mike Clark. I'm so happy to have you. It's such an honor.
Thank you. My honor and privilege.
A very famous drummer, very well-known jazz drummer, also well-known funk drummer, and a long-time lecturer at the Drummers Collective. Are you still there?
No, I haven't been there since the early 90s.
All right.
Yeah, but I still do a lot of clinics and teaching and here I am.
That's so great in Berlin. Welcome, and let's talk about your upbringing. I read you're from Sacramento, California. So you're a California boy.
Well, I was born in Sacramento, and my father was a drummer and a jazz musician.
Oh, really?
And a railroad man. He stopped playing when he was 20, so there was always jazz records and a set of drums in the house, always, since I was born.
Yeah. So that's, you started at a very early age, like four. And did you get lessons by your dad, or you just jammed with records?
As soon as I went to the drum set at 4, I was like. My parents were like, "Oh my goodness, okay." You know, my dad was happy,
right?
And that very night, he took me to a nightclub and had me play with his friends who had a band.
All right.
You know, at a gig, and so I guess my brain, before I could walk or talk, was assimilating all this jazz music that he played.
So that was in the late 50s, in the early 50s.
Early, yeah.
So what's his name? Like Gene Krupa or Kruger. Those were those heroes back in those days.
Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich. Count Basie,
right.
Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, these were his records. Zutty Singleton, Lionel Hampton, Sonny Payne, Papa Joe Jones. This is before bebop,
right.
Before I was aware of bebop.
Right.
So I was hearing all of these guys, and all of these guys were my favorite drummers. I liked them all very much, you know.
Right, and a lot of those bands, like Count Basie, of course, back in the days, that was dance music too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and when I first started working, even as a child, into my teen years, that's what we played, was dance music, big band, swing. There was no rock yet.
Right, so people would actually dance to that music too.
Yeah, that's why I was talking about the quarter note ice cream scoop. You had to make them dance, and I still like that feel. But then later I discovered, by the time I was 9 or 10, my father brought home an Art Blakey record, and then everything changed. Right. Immediately.
That was an awesome drummer. So he had those quarter notes, and in such a brutal way, the way he would play the shuffle.
Indeed, and the shuffle, yeah. And but that led me to Charlie Parker and Coltrane and Sonny Rollins, and later on Lee Morgan, everybody, Miles Davis, you know, the whole thing.
Right.
So I started collecting those kind of records quite young.
But you still were just teaching yourself, no lessons?
The only time I took lessons was I took lessons from several people to learn to read.
Right.
But I never took lessons for technique or swinging or anything.
So no drum and bugle corps or
No, I didn't get to do that.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't. That would not be bad. I'd like to do that now.
Right. But that's amazing. So, and then you moved to the Bay Area. That was like your first step then?
Well, no. Actually, my father, because he traveled, we moved to Texas, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Virginia. And by then I was a child professional drummer, and I would be hired to come into a club and play 2 solo pieces.
So really, what age was that?
I think from the years 7 till I got to be 11 or 12, and then I thought I was too good to do that anymore.
But they would let you get into the club, so you needed an extra permission for that, or what?
Not a problem in those days, as long as I came with my dad.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't go in there and order a drink, you know, at 9. Although they'd give me a few drinks, the musician. Oh, well, that's another story. Anyway, you can cut that part out if you want. But yeah, so that was my background. And then I moved to Oakland maybe when I was 20 years old, and I immediately got a 4-night-a-week gig. My gig, I'm the band leader, organ trio. 3 years it lasts.
Great.
Beautiful. And then I played
So straight ahead jazz.
all straight ahead, a little bit of funk,
Right.
but more like Wes Montgomery funk, whatever the jazz guys were doing, Lee Morgan, Horace Silver, that kind of, if you want to call
Were
that
they from
funk.
the Bay Area too, Horace Silver?
No.
Right.
But
George Duke, well, he was from South
L.A.,
Africa, wasn't he?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then I just started working in the Bay Area, and I kept working constantly. And then I met
So
Herbie
you played with Woody Shaw, Eddie Henderson, Joe Henderson. That was in that area.
and Pharoah Sanders, or
Right.
whoever was there. I was one of the drummers that played with them. Yes, yes.
When they came to town or the guys who from that area.
Well, Bobby and Woody lived there.
They lived there.
Yeah, at that time, Woody had moved there, and Woody would bring Lenny White out. And then when he'd do gigs and he couldn't get Lenny White, I started playing with him.
Right. Awesome. And how did you meet Herbie Hancock then?
Paul Jackson was my roommate and my best friend, and he was playing bass, and Herbie hired him, and then he suggested that Herbie hire me. So Herbie called me, and I went over and played with him, and then he hired me.
But he was still in New York, was he? So
No, he was living in L.A.
Oh, really?
But he would come up to the Bay Area all the time.
All right.
And when he did, he auditioned me.
Okay.
Come play with me. He asked me, come over and play with me. Let's see if it feels good.
Right.
And that was it.
So and then you recorded, I think, a couple of records with Herbie and did a lot of tours with the Headhunters.
About 3.5 to 4 years.
Right.
Pretty much, something like that. Yeah, and I played maybe 4 or 5 records, 3 or 4 records, something
Right.
like
I read
this.
like the Thrust, the record.
Thrust, yeah.
Right.
Flood,
Yeah.
A Man-Child,
Right.
and I think that's all. Yeah.
Right. So, but that was pretty much funk music, wasn't it? Like funk
Yeah.
to fusion. Fusion
The
is
beginning.
more backbeat orientated stuff.
Totally. I mean,
Right.
I didn't, which made me, I questioned whether I should take the gig because it was, first of all, it's Herbie Hancock, one of the greatest musicians ever, asked me to play with him. I'm honored and privileged. At the same time, we're not going to play jazz, and I'm like, I don't want people to be asking me to play funk 30 and 40 years from now because he's so famous that they'll know me from this record instead of my jazz records because this record is going to sell a lot. But I did it.
Right.
I think what he said, I talked to him about this and he was real cool, and I think what he said was, well, you could stay here in the Bay Area and play jazz till you die and you're obviously doing well. Or you could come with me and everybody in the world's going to hear of you. So I went, okay,
So
I'll take the gig.
He was pretty confident, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he didn't need. There are plenty of great drummers that wanted that gig. So if I didn't do it, somebody else would. That's for sure. But I had a certain original style, and he was like, "Whoa, what are you doing? What is this?" And so for a minute, it captured his attention.
Right. So that leads me to my question. Like we're talking about jazz, swing, straight ahead, and we're talking about funk. So isn't that like, do you have the same approach when you play funk music? Is it like the same swing feel you add, or is it for you a totally different thing when you play backbeat music?
Well, it's definitely a different thing in the aspect that you're going to play a completely different rhythm. So that changes the color right there.
Right.
And then, but I play mostly jazz style ideas when I play funk,
Right.
because I'm a jazz drummer. I'm not really a fusion. I'm not really, that's not the language that I have. So when I played with Herbie, more like Roy Haynes and whoever I loved, all those guys, right? During the improv, once you go to the cymbal, and I'm pretty much playing jazz, except I'm not playing swing. It's still eighth note. 16, whatever you want to call it, but the improvisation is the same, the language, but the beats are different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And before in the tutorial section, you were talking about the Oakland Funk. I mean, and of course, I could hear this Oakland stroke, of course, where everyone gives credit to David Garibaldi. But I'm sure, did that develop in that area, or? So that was like that style cats were played on there.
Well, the Oakland Stroke was a tune that was written by the Tower of Power.
Right.
But yes, David Garibaldi and I or so the story goes, are credited with the Oakland thing because we both became well-known artists, and but that style and that sound was a community sound.
Right.
This was Oakland. This was what you heard coming out of the clubs, and
Right.
David and I were two of the pioneers of this style. But there were other people doing this as well.
Right.
It was going to go this way anyway. Just like jazz goes a certain way, sometimes you can predict which way it's going. If you have vision, you can see what's next. And this is how I felt when I played this. Funk was easy for me to play because I didn't have to work out the beats. My brain could just play them right away.
Right.
I don't know why. It's like we're all talented in different ways, all of us, and I could just play these beats without thinking too much.
Right.
I don't know. That's my story.
And then awesome. And then I read that you also went to England to play with Phil Collins' band, with Brand X.
I did. I got a call in the middle of the night. I didn't even know who Phil Collins or Brand X was. At this point, I'm playing I was working with Eddie Henderson, and we had
All right.
5-night-a-week gig for 1 year. 5-night
Where was
playing
that?
jazz, San Francisco, at a club
right.
called Christo's. And when that gig was just getting, after 1 year, that gig was closing. And right away, in the middle of the night, Percy Jones calls me. And I don't know who he is, and they asked me to come to New York and play with audition to play with Brand X in there, and it was a chance to go to New York and hang out. So I'm like, sure, even if I don't get it, they're paying my way. I go to New York, nice hotel, 3 days. I'm like, whatever, I got the gig. So and then we went to England to Ringo Starr's house, and he had a house that he converted into a recording studio called Startling Studios, and we made a record there with Brand X. And this was the house that used to belong to John and Yoko.
All right.
And they sold it to Ringo. So that video, Imagine, that was the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Ringo had a 50-foot dinosaur built in the backyard that would look into the window. So when you woke up, they had these electric windows. You press the button and the window would open, and there's a Tyrannosaurus. It was beautiful. I love this, man. You know what I mean? I was like, anyway, it's not really about drumming, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that
it was
sounds
fantastic,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also Wayne Shorter, Chet Baker, Fred Wesley were the guys you played with, and you recorded your own records, I guess.
Well, I've recorded a lot of records as a leader.
Right.
If I can, you could go to drummermikeclark.com. It's all on there, and I just have one.
Check that out. So again,
please.
the website again.
drummermikeclark.com.
All right.
And I have a new record out right now called Retro Report. It's an organ record, and it's jazz and funk and blues and shuffles and straight ahead. I'm very proud of this record. And it's doing really well in the United States right now on radio. So
awesome. So
I have
definitely will check that out. And I read like years ago there was this great book by Jim Payne about the funk drummers give the drummers some, and of course there was a big feature of you too, and he featured you as a funk drummer, of course. And in the interview you also said that you are very much into blues music.
Well, yes, I love to listen to any kind of blues, whether it's jazz, whether it's Albert King, right, Jimmy Reed, or Coltrane, or whoever, or Sonny Rollins, or I love any blues. Even when I was a child, it always knocked me out. And today when I hear the same records that I heard when I was a kid, it's like I'm hearing them for the first time. It knocks me out. Right. I don't know why. I just like it. I always did. I don't know whether would like playing a blues gig all night, every night for a week, or I don't know whether but a good shuffle every once in a while, right, yeah, man.
That's great, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Cool. So, since we are an educational channel, any advice for young guys and girls who want to make it? What would you suggest?
Well, I would definitely say this, and this is from my experience. I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what I did. I learned this from Herbie Hancock. Determination is everything. So if you're determined to be successful and play jazz, funk, rock, whatever, play drums, and you don't let anybody or anything deter you from doing this, you will be successful. Right. And also, technically, I don't mean chop technique, I mean play with human beings all you can. It's great in the practice room, it's great but it's even better to play music than it is to play just drums. So the better of a musician you are, learn to read music and play for the band, not just to show people how good you are. Because after you get older, that becomes, everybody knows. You're like, oh, well, that dude, he's just trying to show you how good he is. I mean, you do want to play your best. You don't want to play, but music is first for me. Right.
So, and that's maybe the last question. We are a online school, but of course we also have the physical school. Don't you agree, like watching things on YouTube is a nice thing, but being in a room with a couple of musicians and really watching a live concert is a totally different story, isn't it?
It is different, yes. All of it is important. Listening, like when I used to listen to Art Blakey, all of these guys, Philly Joe, I would try to tune my drums and play just like them, even though I'm not sure what they did. I would approximate this. But I would also go to see them live. And also, I didn't get to go to music school. If I could go to music school, if I could quit working now and go to music school, I would. Yeah. It's a great tool. It's a great benefit to be able to go and have great musicians teach you. I don't think there's a way you can tell somebody that until they're out in the world trying to make a living, and then they realize how important all of this is. Because school, live concerts, talking to other musicians, so they can pass on to you, like I did the ice cream scoop and all of these things, and listening. It's nothing more important than that if you're going to do this.
Yeah. Great. Mike Clark, ladies and gentlemen, Drumtrainer Online, thank you so much. A great honor. I hope to see you again and have a great day.
Thank you. It's my privilege to do this, and thank you so much for calling me. Okay.
Bye.